Hi, I'm Ira Israel. Welcome to Authenticity and Awakening for Lovable Idiots. The only thing that correlates strongly with happiness is the quality of our intimate relationships. And if you want to have great, supportive, loving, intimate relationships, then we have to learn how to be authentic. So you're probably wondering, why did this guy entitle the course for Lovable Idiots? The reason I did that is because there are people in our lives who we love, who we're in relationship with, and for some reason they trigger us. We don't know why. We can't figure it out. We've told them, hey, that thing that you do with your mouth open when you're eating, it really bothers me. And they're still doing it. And you're sitting there and it's been 10 or 30, 40 years and you're thinking, wow, this person must be an idiot. I told them 2,000 times that it affects me and they're still doing it. So what we're going to look at today is we're going to get under the hood, see how your mind, your operating system was installed, and figure out why you're triggered, right? So the title of my book is How to Survive Your Childhood Now That You're an Adult, A Path to Authenticity and Awakening. The reason I gave it that subtitle is because I don't believe that there is the path, right? There's 8 billion people, there's 8 billion paths. There's 8 billion types of meditation. There should be 8 billion types of psychology. There's no one size fits all for any of this stuff. So hopefully you'll use this class as a dressing room and you'll try on some of these new tools. And at the end of the class, you'll take the ones that fit and you'll leave the others behind. So we're going to get some insight into how our minds operate, right? Because that's like the foundation of how to be authentic, is to figure out, what's going on. My favorite quote is, I don't know who discovered water, but I doubt it was a fish, right? We are all those fish. We have very little insight into our operating systems, right? And we need to figure out what's going on under the hood so that we can make tweaks and enroll people in showing up in new, supportive, loving relationships. Einstein said that whatever level of consciousness created the problem will be unable to fix it. So what I have to do is take you on an intellectual, spiritual, psychological, emotional roller coaster. I have to rattle your cage a little bit, and I have to give you some new tools. Because when the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem resembles a nail. All right. So what is authenticity? I break it down into attachment, atonement, attunement, presence, and congruence. Attachment is attachment theory. So you have a basic paradigm, perspective, lens, a way you see the world in general. We got to figure out what that is. Atonement is cleaning up the past so that you can show up authentically for the present moment. Attunement is how you connect with other people. The famous quote from my book is, mirror neurons do not fire via text message. Right? We really want to be able to empathize and have people empathize with us, because that's how we grow and learn and feel supported. Then there's presence, which is not letting our minds drag us into the past, not letting our minds drag us into the future, being able to just drop into the present moment. And then there's congruence, which is an incredible privilege. You live in a society where you get to decide who you want to be, and then you take courses like this so you have tools so that engender this amazing person. All right, so that's authenticity: attachment, atonement, attunement, presence, and congruence. And then after that, we'll go into the second section, which is awakening. So for me, we'll make a distinction between enlightenment, moksha, and awakening. And then we'll study a little bit of Buddhist psychology, because that's really important. I don't believe that Buddhism is a religion. It's a prescription to alleviate suffering. So it gives us some great insight into how our minds operate. And then what does it mean to live an awakened life, particularly in this society? What does it mean how to show up and inspire people to be loving and compassionate? For me, what you're going to learn in this course is that your mind is basically this binary mechanism. And it creates juxtapositions and paradoxes. And what you're going to learn to do in the second part of this course is walk that razor's edge, is surf the paradoxes of life. And that's what I mean by being awakened. All right, so we have to be the change we want to see in the world. You can't tell someone, hey, you should be vulnerable. Hey, you should be authentic. Hey, you should be compassionate, right? We have to show up in a certain way and inspire people to want to be like us. So that's what you're going to learn throughout this course. And it's your choice. You can either leave this course with results, or you can leave this course with excuses. The results you're going to leave with are this whole set of tools which I'm going to give you step by step throughout all the classes. And then if not, you'll just find this to be one of those entertaining little things, and you'll make a bunch of excuses why you don't want to change. So it's up to you. You're either going to leave here with results or excuses. I'm hoping that I inspire you to make some tweaks, to try on some new tools, and to enroll people around you in new, loving, authentic relationships. All right, so I hope to see you back in the next section, authenticity. Thank you very much for watching. All right, welcome back. What is authenticity? I was in a course years ago, and the teacher said, you can only be authentic in decrying your own inauthenticity. So if I say, I authentically love you, there's something about it that falls flat, that falls hollow. It doesn't seem correct. But if I say, I was acting passive aggressive last night when I didn't return your phone call. I have no excuse. I'm sorry, unequivocally. That rings true. Like, that feels authentic when you own your own inauthenticity. So that's one definition that resonates with me. You can actually spend some time, if you like, going through Heidegger and Sartre and all those other people. But for the purposes of this course, I think that we just need to agree on what authenticity is. So it's difficult to define, but I'm going to give you some reasons why we just need to have some understanding of it. So the first thing we need to do is look at the mind. I like to use the analogy that the brain is the hardware and the mind is the software. The mind is your operating system. And we need to be able to take a look at it to see how it's running. So my favorite quote is, I don't know who discovered water, but I doubt it was a fish. And we're all these fish swimming in our own way of being in the world. And again, we have very little insight into that way of being unless our houses are full of mirrors, or we go to therapy a lot, or we're married, because our partners show up as our mirrors and trigger us, which is the whole point of making a course for lovable idiots, because you're going to look at your partner once in a while and you're going to be like, wow, didn't I tell them that they chew with their mouth open and that thing, it just drives me crazy? Why, if I told them that, are they still doing it? What an idiot. All right. Einstein said this more poetically when he said that the level of consciousness that created the problem will be unable to fix it. So what I have to do is take you on a little bit of a roller coaster. I have to take you on a spiritual, emotional, psychological, intellectual roller coaster. I have to rattle your cage a little bit and give you some new tools, because when the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem resembles a nail. Okay, are you ready to play? Raise your hand if you can outrun a bear. Raise your hand if you can outfly a predatory bird. No? Raise your hand if you can outswim a shark. Now, what's the superpower that allows humans to survive? Language, right? And it's also, if you read our president's tweets, it's also quite a dangerous thing, isn't it? But for the purposes of this course, I just want you to entertain the possibility that language is a cage. It's a prison, right? And if you can only speak one or two or three languages, it influences what you can and can't think, right? So I'm going to give you some funny examples of how language doesn't work. There's no egg and eggplant, nor ham and hamburger. If a vegetarian eats vegetables, what does a humanitarian eat? If adults commit adultery, do infants commit infantry? Why do we park on driveways and drive on parkways? And these are actual headlines. It's funny because you can say them either way, so you'll get it immediately. Squad helps dog bite victim. Man eating piranha mistakenly sold as pet fish. Juvenile court to try shooting defendant. Right? So we're trapped in a language, and that language, we have 1 million words in the English language and infinite possibilities, infinite combinations, but it's still very confusing and limiting, and we have to use it to mediate our experiences with other human beings, and you can see how there can be misinterpretations. So If we want to be authentic, what we have to look at is how our minds operate, how we think, how our operating systems are running. Now, I believe that our mind's primary desire is to try to stave off potential future trauma, right? And it does this by creating expectations and contingencies. Well, if I get a ticket on my car, I'll pay it and then I'll fight it. Or, you just have all these things going around in your mind. But I'd like you to entertain the possibility that at this point in time, past the age of 15, 20 years old, we're really just a bundle of reactions waiting for stimuli. And that's what we need to examine, because that is our way of being in the world. It is mostly comprised of defense mechanisms, right? So those defense mechanisms, just try on. I know this is difficult, but just try it on. They're actually prejudices. And you're coming to all experiences inauthentically because your prejudices are not, you're just like, oh yeah, chocolate bad, or oh, vanilla bad, or oh, vanilla good, right? Instead of just showing up in this moment and saying, wow, I don't know, I'll taste both, and maybe I'll choose both vanilla and chocolate. I don't know, right? So, the real reason I want you to use that word, and listen, none of us want to admit that we're prejudiced. I know that. But whatever is making up those defense mechanisms could be hindering your loving relationships. And we all want to be happy. And the one thing that correlates strongly with happiness is the quality of our intimate relationships, right? So if we want to have beautiful, loving, supportive, intimate relationships, what do we need to do? We need to be authentic. And to be authentic, what do we need to do? Well, in my book, I break it down into attachment, atonement, attunement, presence, and congruence. Okay? Attachment, atonement, attunement, presence, and congruence, and that's what we'll be going over for the next 5 videos. All right, let's go back to authenticity. So, this is how I learned about authenticity. I took a course like this, and a gentleman stood up and he said, when I was in high school, I cut the first 45 days of physics class. And I'm from Lebanon, and the teacher was from Lebanon. And one day, the teacher cornered me in the hall, and he said, hey, why are you signed up for my class? You've been cutting it the whole time. I'm going to fail you. You don't need this class. You're just going to end up working in your father's shop. So just cut the class, and that will be done. So what's the kid do? He took that class every day. He got straight A's. He went on to Las Vegas University, University of Las Vegas, and he opened his own shop. So now we're in this course 20 years later. The teacher asked, what's the name of your shop? He says, it's Bob's Shop. No, it's not. What's the name of your shop? Well, my name's Bob. It's Bob's Shop. No, it's not. What's the name of your shop? Well, it's Bob's Shop. I'm Bob. No, it's not. The name of your shop is Not My Father's Shop. So we become what we love and we become what we hate, and both are inauthentic. Here's another way of putting it. One brother asked another one, so why'd you grow up to be a drunk? And he says, because dad was a drunk. And then the other brother asks, why didn't you grow up to be a drunk? And he says, because dad was a drunk. You've all seen this chart before. K represents everything that you know. You know how to use an iPhone. You know how to speak English. You know how to drive a car. DK represents everything that you don't know. You don't know how to change a carburetor on a Bugatti. You don't know how to fly to Mars. You don't know how to get your kids to listen to you. And then DK represents everything that you don't know that you don't know. And that is infinite. Again, language is a cage. You only speak 1, 2, 3, 4 languages. So there's this infinite array of phenomena out there that are unknown to you, right? I'm going to ask you to entertain the possibility that it's what you don't know that could be causing any unsatisfactoriness in your life. And then the other thing that's interesting to me, so I'm studying Lacan for a couple of years, and the subconscious, the unconscious, and Slavoj Žižek says, what we know, but we don't know that we know. That's the Freudian subconscious. And again, I don't know who discovered water, but I doubt it was a fish. We're trying to get some insight into our way of being. You know, we're trying to lift the hood and examine why we think the stuff that we think, why we do the things that we do, and why we consider all the things that we consider to be normal. Because, unless your life is incredibly perfect, you may be open to making some tweaks that will help you run more smoothly. All right. So if you're taking this course, you probably have tried meditation or have a daily meditation practice. And if you do, then you know that the mind has a mind of its own. So how many black dots can you count at the same time? It's very interesting, right? Here's another one. This is called the Thatcher effect. So what do you see? 3 women upside down, correct? So this is what you really see. What? So do me a favor, squint at their lips, squint at their eyes, just get it in your head, right? So we'll do it again. So what do you see? 3 beautiful women upside down, correct? What do you really see? All right. So I normally teach this class in front of 100 people, but just go with me for this next part. What's the color of snow? And what do cows drink? Now, most of the time in the classes, all these PhDs from Stanford, Harvard, MIT, Yale yell out milk. And then I have to sit there and let them bathe in their own confusion, because I'm sitting there wondering. Because what happened is I primed them by saying white, by having them say white, to have them think of milk. Cows drink water, right? So the reason this is important is because there's something called rebranding, where you're sitting there just innocuously playing on your computer and something comes up on the left, MAC lipstick, try this MAC lipstick, and you don't even you're sitting there, and then all of a sudden October comes around, November, you're like, you know, I always want to try MAC lipstick. So that's why, all the things that you think are so important, because this to me is the funniest photo on the internet. So, when you look at it first, you're like, yeah, what's the problem? And then you realize, man, too stupid to use hat. So I know this could be a little bit provocative, but we're all that guy. We all have those hats, but we're wearing them the wrong way, right? So take a look, and we're going to try to turn those hats around today. There is no immaculate perception. Rene Magritte made this painting. This is not a pipe, to show you that you cannot smoke a painting, right? We have the symbolic world out there of language, words, images, sounds, and they're not reality, right? Lacan actually says that language distances us from reality. So the map is not the territory. Wittgenstein famously asked, when I say red and you think red, how do we know that we're thinking the same things? We don't, right? We can never know. But we do need language to mediate like our own personal experiences, and we have to take on the fact that the map is not the territory. I have a map in my head, and you have a map in your head, and we have to see where they match and where they don't match, okay? As I said, just entertain the possibility that at this point in our lives, we are a bundle of defense mechanisms. We're riding on autopilot. There's billions and billions of bits of information out there that we could point our awareness to, but our awareness is basically, what's for lunch? How do I pay my rent? When's the next time I'm going to be intimate with someone? We just have all these things that we think are normal, and yet there's a infinite possibilities of things we can think, and in the 4th part of this class, I'm hopefully going to teach you to think better thoughts. Do you think your thoughts, or do your thoughts think you? Lacan has this beautiful phrase, language thinks me, right? So that's the whole point of this course, is to get you to have a better understanding of why you think the stuff that you think. And that's what we'll study in the next section. I'll see you there. Welcome back. This is why you think the stuff that you think. And to get some insight into that, we're going to talk about attachment theory. So there's this beautiful phrase, I'm paraphrasing it actually, it's Winnicott, and he says that we develop a false self to survive our childhoods, right? We develop a persona. or a facade. Like maybe you were the sarcastic guy. I mean, I'm projecting. That was me. Maybe you were the jock. That wasn't me. Maybe you were the brain. You were somebody when you were 7, 11, and 14. And whatever tools you develop to survive your childhood are great. You should embrace them. Don't be upset about them. They worked. You're here, right? But I'm asking you to entertain the possibility that whatever tools you develop to survive your childhood are now hindering you from getting the authentic love that you crave as an adult. So, hopefully, from this course, you will enlarge your toolbox and have new tools to be able to show up in a new, more authentic way. Now, this might seem a little harsh to you, but I believe that most of our interactions with adults for the first 18 years of our lives are some form of behavior modification. Babies want to eat when they're hungry, sleep when they're tired, poop when they have to poop, and play when they're playful. And we're trying to make them into productive members of society. Like there's this thing called science. And science says that the optimum time to breastfeed babies is 18 months. Firstly, we're the only mammal there's a lot of mammals. I haven't counted. I know there's a lot. And we're the only one that drinks the milk of another mammal, right? That's one thing. And in Tibet, for instance, you would be in a satchel on your, we consider these countries undeveloped, right? Third world countries, oh my God. But in these horrible unsophisticated places, you would be in a satchel and you'd be on your mother's breast and you'd be sleeping with your mom for 3 or 4 or 5 years. And you see 4 or 5-year-olds like run around the restaurant and then breastfeed with the mother, and everyone's like, oh my God, put it away, what is this, Africa? And it's the most natural thing in the world. That's what we want to do. But what we do in our culture is send them to school, right? So the way we civilize children in our society is by telling them what not to do, right? Don't stick your tongue in a socket. Don't jab your sister with a fork. Don't run out into the street, right? And then you wonder 35 years later why there's this epidemic of negative self-talk. So right up the road in Malibu, there are 50 rehab centers. And if we went to any of them today or any meetings today, we would just find this plethora of people who say they have negative self-talk, that they're not good enough, that they'll be happy when this other thing happens, right? Now, when that happens in my office, I always ask, were you born with that voice in your head? Is there a gene that says I'm not good enough? Like, no, right? Somebody put it there. And this is the reason why we need to study attachment theory. All right, so Lacan in 34 wrote a paper called Le Stade du Miroir, and what he said was that if you hold a baby up to a mirror, its eyes just go like Stevie Wonder's. So why is that? Because it has no self, right? And then little by little, over 6 to 18 months, there's this thing that happens where the baby is like, oh, look, there's a object in the mirror, and look, this is, yeah, okay. And then someone gives it, oh, this is my hand, But the main thing is the individuation process so that the baby gains a sense of self and is not identified with the mother, right? Because that is its natural state. Now, in the early 60s in London, John Bowlby noticed that babies became distressed when their mothers were absent. And then in 1969, Mary Ainsworth did something called the strange experiment, where she had a mother and a baby in the room, and then the mother would leave, and then the mother would come back. And there were originally 3 types of reactions, the way the baby reattached to the mother when she came back into the room, and we'll study those now. So the first one, and this was in 33% of the babies in 1969. So the babies knew that the mother would not put them in harm's way. So that when the mother left, the baby, was like kind of concerned, but, they knew that it'd be okay. And then when the mother came back in, the baby jumped into the arms, all good, no problem. 33%. All right. So what happened in the other 67%? Those are insecure attachments. And so the first one, which was very conspicuous, is called avoidant, and the other term is indifferent. So the mother would leave, the baby would cry itself out, basically, basically freak out, right? Like I'm all alone in this strange situation, and somebody could come and kill me. I'm dependent for safety and food on this other larger mass, right? So the mother came back in, and the baby went like this. Screw you. I'm not going to reattach. I mean, it hurt so bad the first time. Why would I ever let that happen again? So that's called avoidant attachment dynamic, right? And I don't know if you've ever done internet dating, but if you swipe left 99% of the time, you should entertain the possibility that you have avoidant attachment dynamics, right? You're very judgmental, and essentially you're avoiding really connecting with people because you have fears, right? So the third type is anxious, preoccupied. And that was when the mother left the room. The baby cried itself out or freaked out a little bit. The mother came back in. The baby went into the mother's arms, but the baby was kind of like, I don't know, like I think that manifests now as like 1 foot out the door in relationships, right? And then the last type is disorganized, and that was added subsequently. And it's interesting to me because I sat with Sue Johnson, who said that any type of insecure attachment could manifest as anxiety or depression later in life. But I think that disorganized attachment correlates strongly with borderline personality disorder. So we all know what that looks like. If someone suffers from borderline personality disorder, they have extreme reactions. You'll say something like, yeah, I'm not going to make it to lunch tomorrow. And they say, oh, fine, I'll just go kill myself. And you're like, what? Like, what? Just lunch, man. So the babies that have these extreme reactions of attaching and unattaching and fleeing, and I think that that's what happens later in life when people have that extreme way of trying to get their needs met, and they don't realize that it's not acceptable in our society. All right, so this is very important for the way you attach to people later in life. The way you think of yourself, is the world a secure place? The way you think of other people, hey, if I turn my back, someone's going to stab me, And these are the reasons why attachment theory is pivotal in terms of your understanding of why your mind thinks the stuff that it thinks. Specifically, I listened to a tape in my car, it's now 16 years ago, called Marriage is the Path to Wholeness by Harville Hendrix. And he said that the subconscious purpose of marriage in America is to enable us to complete our childhoods. Our parents had deficits. Those deficits wounded us. Those wounds became defense mechanisms, and those defense mechanisms became our personalities. And we'll always be attracted to people who could replicate the dynamics from one or more of our primary caregivers. And then Marianne Williamson adds, if they can't replicate them, we'll train them to. So what I'm asking you to entertain is that there's a wounded child in all of us, because we just want to be loved unconditionally. That's all a kid wants. And yet our parents are saying, get good grades, eat with a fork, be a good X, be a good Y, and then we'll show you positive reinforcement. And all love in our culture, because of our school system, is basically conditional, and we want to be loved unconditionally. So later in life, we have that wounded child in us who wants to still be loved unconditionally and is reenacting these dynamics with our partners. And the other book that I love is Drama of the Gifted Child by Alice Miller. So in it, she talks about my generation as being the, babies were meant to be seen and not heard generation. So we were essentially considered to be appendages, and our parents wanted to be proud of us, so we had to behave in a certain way, and we basically couldn't vocalize our own emotional states because we wanted our parents to be proud of us, so we had to go to good schools and do certain things. We're learning now that there might be ramifications to being raised in this manner as if you're a gifted child. So anyways, take a look at that book. So the way this adds up for me and why it's so important is because On the outside, we have a false self, persona, or a facade. And on the inside, we have this negative self-talk, and that adds up to the imposter syndrome, right? I think a lot of dysfunctionality comes because we have that negative self-talk, and yet we're leading these hip and glorious lives. So just try to get some insight into why you think the things that you think, how you learn to think those things, and then entertain the possibility that you might be able to think better thoughts, And that's why I love this quote so much. To choose doubt as a philosophy of life is akin to choosing immobility as a means of transportation. So Schrodinger in the 20th century did this theoretical experiment. Schrodinger's cat is called now. But basically, the percipient influences the experiment, right? So, and we all believe that. That's what phenomenology is about too. This whole philosophical movement about our way of perceiving it is very influential on how it will be perceived. Go figure. And I love the way Einstein said this. There are only two ways to live your life. One is as though nothing is a miracle, and the other is as though everything is a miracle. Again, I think that you developed a way of perceiving the world, a perspective, a paradigm, when you were pre-verbal, before you knew language. And you need to have some insight into whether you believe that the world is an inherently safe place and you can lean in, or is the world inherently suspicious and that you have to protect yourself and hoard and be worried all the time, or someone will stab you in the back. So that's why attachment theory is so important, because it will give you some insight into why you think the things that you think. All right, so that's attachment theory and why it's so important. We're going to move on now to the next section, which is at-one-ment atonement. Welcome back. This is section 3, atonement. There is a painting at MoMA in New York City called One Mint by Barnett Newman, and I use this painting to explicate this section. One mint, if that's confusing to you, it's because it's not a word. And it's interesting to me because if you put at in front of it, it becomes atonement. At one mint, atonement, right? So in this section, we're going to learn how to clean up our past so that we can show up authentically for the present moment. As I said in the previous sections, we're essentially this matrix of defense mechanisms waiting for stimuli, and that's inauthentic. So what do we need to do to clean up our past so that we accept who we are and what we're doing on planet Earth? The tool is forgiveness. All right. As I said, our minds create these complaints, these grievance stories, and we need to learn how to release them, There's this beautiful quote by Suzuki Roshi. He says, "You're perfect, and there's room for improvement." So for me, the perfect part of you is whatever part of you can watch your thoughts. And the part that could use some improvement is your ego, essentially, your thoughts. And we're going to show you how you can do that now. All right. Your mind creates grievance stories. It goes through various traumas when you're a child, and it creates grievance stories, and those show up as woulda, coulda, shoulda, didn't. So, for example, it would be, oh, I'd be happy now if my parents didn't get divorced, or oh, I'd be happy now if I didn't become a lawyer, or oh, I'd be happy now if I won the lottery. These things didn't happen, right? If you came home and saw your child on the couch trying to shove a square peg into a round hole, you'd say, stop it. It's not going to work. And this is what your mind does all day long, right? Woulda, coulda, shoulda, didn't. Eckhart Tolle says, you either accept your life or change it. Any other position is insane. It's a new definition of insanity. If you complain about something you can't change, that's insane, right? So the tool is forgiveness, and we need a new definition to help us here. So forgiveness is not condoning someone else's behavior. Forgiveness is releasing your right to resent something happened, right? Ressentiment en français, is again, sentiment is sentiment, and you are re-feeling something from 20, 30 years ago. So how can we clean that up? There's whatever happened in the past, whatever traumatic thing happened, and then there's your story about it. And the problem is that we create these grievance stories, and they contain judgments. When we say, oh yeah, there was a car accident, or my parents got divorced, or this terrible thing happened in college, you're conveying this should not have happened. Right? And what that is a resentment, your mind's desire to want a different past. Again, try to shove a square peg into a round hole. Here's another one. Just raise your hands like this. I can see you, so actually do it, please. On a count of 3, I'd like you to clap last Thursday. 1, 2, clap last Thursday. Clap last month. Clap last year. You can't change the past. What good does it do complaining about it, right? So anytime we hear, oh, this shouldn't have happened, or I should have become a lawyer, or I shouldn't have married this person, you have an adverse relationship with reality. Reality is that you are a lawyer. You did marry this person, So stop creating these resentments, because they're just like poking yourself in the eye and waiting for someone else to go blind. Or they're as absurd as drinking poison and waiting for someone else to get sick. You need to accept essentially every moment of your life. And that's what I call walking through the fire, owning everything that you are today and everything that went into making you that person. Because, good and evil don't exist out there. They exist in our head. As Hamlet tells Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, there's nothing good or bad, but thinking makes it so. Right? And Nietzsche says, there's no such thing as a moral phenomenon. There are only moral interpretation of phenomena. But, musicians always say it better than everyone else. Miles Davis said, it is what it is. Right? So, when I sat with His Holiness the Dalai Lama in Seattle, someone asked him, who's your greatest teacher? So he's the leading spokesperson for Buddhism in the West. So you think he would say, well, the Buddha is my greatest teacher. And what does he say? The Chinese, who killed 2 million of his people with axe handles and in horrible ways. That's his greatest teacher. So you might not be so fond of that person you're divorcing right now, or your business partner who did something that you don't think was the best thing for everybody. But, at some point in time, you might look back and think that these people were your greatest teacher. So forgiveness is the ability to accept a no. This did happen. My grandmother died. My dog was hit by a car. This trauma did happen. But I'm going to release the resentment, which is this should not have happened, right? It did happen. You can't shove a square peg into a round hole. You can't clap last Thursday. You have to accept every moment of your life, because that made you who you are today. Lily Tomlin says, forgiveness means giving up all hope of having a better past. Unforgiveness is our desire to share our suffering. Unforgiveness is our desire to share our suffering. If you're not willing to forgive, that means that you're not done suffering. And what you're trying to do actually is gain empathy from other people. If you're not willing to forgive people, it just means that you're getting some benefits from playing the victim. So there's a bumper sticker. Pain is unavoidable. Suffering is optional. Pain is unavoidable. Suffering is optional. Pain does not cause suffering. It's our intolerance of pain that causes suffering. So when I talk about Buddhism and the second noble truth, which is the root of all suffering, is desire. And desire manifests as clinging and aversion. Your mind clings to pleasurable experiences and tries to avert painful ones. And this is exactly what Freud wrote 1,000 years later in the paper called The Pleasure Principle. So the problem is that these things are inauthentic, and the phrase "this too shall pass" is so important. The problem is that you don't want to say, "Oh my God, this is the most ecstatic, blissful experience of my life. This too shall pass," right? But you do want to use that phrase when you're like, "Oh, I broke my arm. I got to get to the hospital. I'm in a lot of pain, but I know this too shall pass. At some point in time, my arm will not be broken," right? So Pain does not cause suffering. It's our intolerance of the pain, the trying to avert it. But if you're in pain, it's just information. It's saying, wow, this is really painful. My arm's broken. I better go get it fixed, right? Stop thinking about dinner. Stop thinking about what movie you're going to watch on Netflix tonight. Get to the hospital, fix the arm. That's what pain is. It's information. So there's one thing we're so bad at in our culture, and that's grief. We have a very narrow bandwidth for acceptable emotions in our culture. We actually, I would argue, don't like angry women, and we don't like sad men, right? And in particular, there's no one size fits all for how to grieve the death of a loved one, the death of a relationship, the death of a job, the death of a pet. There's no, way. And, we essentially just want people to be good, productive members of society, to go back to work, so we don't allow them the space to grieve. But when you do that, you have to give yourself some time to make peace with reality not showing up the way you expected it to. My grandmother did die. My cat did die. And I have to make peace with that. That is reality. So what the Buddha taught is skillful means, right? And we're exceptionally good in our culture at paying our suffering forward. We have this concept of justice. Justice will be served. And if you look very carefully at it, it means revenge, right? Our legal system falls under the Code of Hammurabi. And so in that code, which is an eye for an eye, it essentially says, I need to know that you know how bad you made me feel by killing my son, and the only way I can do that is by killing your son. So we have this paying our suffering forward, where we're sending drones around the world and just bombing people, or the death penalty, things like that. And look how well it's working out in the occupied territories in the Middle East. When is that conflict? It's been 80 years. The Palestinians and the Israelis are like, you kill one of ours, we kill 10 of yours. There's no end in sight. So the paradigm needs to shift, and it will only do so when some brave mother says, it stops with me. I will not pay my suffering forward. I will break this chain of unskillful solutions. So who do you need to forgive so that you can show up authentically for your life today? What woulda, coulda, shoulda, didn't have you been telling all your friends for the past 20 years? What grudge are you holding on to that you can release today and be free for the rest of your life? That grievance story, just let it go. So what I'm going to ask you to do for the next 2 minutes is just close your eyes, please. And just think of what it would be like if you were able to say those words that you've never said before to somebody who caused you harm. Just imagine that person's face in your mind screen. And say, I forgive you. And we'll gently bring our attention back into the room. Okay, so that's atonement. And come back for the next section, please. Attunement. We'll see you then. Welcome back. This is section 4 of Authenticity. Attunement. All right, so what is attunement? You know, it's funny. I love going to the symphony, and I love when the first violinist comes out and he plays the note, and then the symphony tunes to him or attunes to him. So that's one way to think of attunement. And the other way I like to think of it is in the book, there's a phrase that everyone likes: mirror neurons do not fire via text message. Mirror neurons do not fire via text message. So there was a study done in 1972 at UCLA, and they found that 7% of communications is the content. And then I believe 28% of communications is the tone. And then the rest is nonverbal body language. So, I joke around a lot, and I say that the text messaging is as efficacious as smoke signals in terms of communicating things, and I have had hundreds of couples who I've witnessed break up because of misinterpretations of text messages, which I call subtexting. If someone doesn't reply within 2 or 3 minutes, you think, oh my God, they're cheating on me, or what? You just your mind goes into all these places because you're not getting the feeling or sensation. So you need to carve out time and attune to other people, because we have this terrible propensity in this culture to multitask. And when we do, we're actually inadvertently invalidating other people's emotional experience. So we want people to show up for us and be empathetic and really tune into us. And so we got to be able to do it for them too. So that's why this section is called attunement, and it's very important. The main distinction you're going to learn here is how to make someone feel heard. And right when I say that, you say, oh, I know how to listen. I can just skip this section. Making someone feel heard is very different from being able to listen. So I'm going to tell a joke, which is not a joke because it actually really happened to me. I, after my last graduate degree, moved to Texas by mistake, and I was becoming a psychotherapist, and I had a supervisor. And one day he turned to me and he said, "Shit, I can make anybody into a psychotherapist in 5 minutes." And then he went like this. That sounds really challenging. That sounds really difficult. Now, that's a joke, and mirror neurons don't fire via text message. So having another human being devote their attention to you and having their facial affect and everything about them mirror your emotions, I think makes you feel less crazy, because you have this hamster wheel in your head, this, I think the technical term is mishigas, mind craziness, mental, chatter, this thing going on, this soundtrack. And when you sit with another human being and they hold that, you feel less crazy, which is, I think, how therapy functions. So that guy in Texas, it's a joke, but he was right. So let's teach you how to make people feel heard. And the way we do that is through reflective listening. I'm sure you've done this before. Super simple. Someone talks, and then the other person says, "So if I hear you correctly," and then mirrors back what they heard. So for this section, you need a partner. You could just, do it with me here, but that might be weird. Or just remember what you have to do and then try it out later with somebody. So, in 10 words or less, the person with the shorter hair is going to tell the person with the longer hair one thing, and then the person with the longer hair is going to say, "So if I hear you correctly, you feel that," and reflect it back to that person. For example, you could start with, "Today I learned that I may have created theories about reality before I could speak." And then the person reflects back, "So if I hear you correctly, today you learned that you may have created theories about reality before you could speak." Did I get that right? Yes, you got that right. So that's just one example. If you're doing this with a partner at home, the person with the shorter hair, please tell the person with the longer hair one happy memory from your childhood in 10 words or less. So, one happy memory from my childhood is riding my 5-speed bike down Regent Court and just having the wind in my face and feeling free. So if I hear you correctly, one happy memory from your childhood is riding your 5-speed bicycle down Regent Court and feeling free. Did I get that right? All right. So now the person with the longer hair, tell the person with the shorter hair one sad memory from your childhood. One sad memory from my childhood is walking on the Weiss's fence, I remember their name, and falling off and breaking my arm. So if I hear you correctly, one sad memory from your childhood is walking on the Weiss's fence and falling off and breaking your arm. Did I get that right? Okay, moving on. Please tell your partner one thing that frustrated you last week. One thing that frustrated me last week was being on lockdown for the coronavirus. I'm dating myself, but that was one thing that was frustrating last week. So if I hear you correctly, one thing that was frustrating last week was being on lockdown for the coronavirus. Did I get that right? Yes. All right, so we do this in a large group, and we normally go through like 10, 15 beautiful things, and people are connecting, and then I ask, will the person with the shorter hair please tell the person with the longer hair that you see 87 purple Martians dancing La Cucaracha on his head? And they go through that exercise. It's very funny. Everyone's laughing. And then I ask, why did I do that? I did that because this exercise is about the process. It's not about the content. So I've had couples in my office who don't speak the same languages, and I'll tell one of them, you speak French to your husband and he speaks Spanish back, because it's not about the content. When I watch people do this, I'm looking at their spine, I'm looking at their shoulders, I'm looking at their foreheads and their eyes, and having them be able to mirror the other person's affect to not invalidate their experience, to make them feel heard, to make them feel like whatever is going on in their emotional world is not stupid, is not crazy, right? Because we just have this plethora of thoughts going on in our heads, and we need to sit with other people and say, this is crazy, but I thought of driving my car off the road yesterday. Isn't that crazy? Ha 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 ha. Right? And the other person's like, wow, that sounds really crazy. I had that thought too. And then all of a sudden you're just like, okay, I guess I'm not batshit crazy. Again, a lot of our interactions with people, when we're checking out, they're on their phone, they're not making eye contact with us, they are inadvertently invalidating our emotional experience. So you need to carve out time, particularly if you're in a couple, to sit there and just be with each other and say whatever's on your mind, and have the other person reflect back what they hear. So to finish this up, if you're in a partner situation, just the person with the longer hair go first, say 3 things that you're grateful for, and then the person with the shorter hair reflect it back. You can stop the video right now, and then afterwards just switch and have the person with the shorter hair speak back, and really try to tune in, look at the other person's shoulders, look at their facial affect, if how they're smiling or if they're crying or whatever emotion the first person, the speaker, has, mirror that. Right? And then sit there and be with that emotional experience, empathize with the person. Because if you want to have authentic relationships, you have to be able to empathize and sit, hold space, be with your partner. All right, so that is how we learn how to make our partners feel heard. Now we're going to learn how to express ourselves positively without blaming. And I love Marshall Rosenberg's Nonviolent Communications. And I teach this just like a Mad Lib, which you can find below probably as a PDF file, or you can just copy down from here. So I hope you all did Mad Libs. If you grew up in the 70s, then you probably did. So here it's I feel, and then you say a feeling state when something, whatever you observe happens. And then because I need, and I express an emotional need. And then in the future, could you please, and then you make a request. So I feel disrespected when there are dirty dishes in the sink because I need order. In the future, could we please not have dirty dishes in the sink? So again, the point of this is if you stab me right here, every muscle in my body would go like this. And then if you stab me again right here, the knife would bounce off. Because that's what your body does. It gets traumatized and then it reacts. And this is what your mind does also. So there's been all sorts of studies done that you always have to open with a positive. If you espouse the Gottman's work, you have to have 5 positives for every 1 negative. So in this instance, you are modeling authenticity by making an I statement about your emotional state. And hopefully that inspires your partner to own what they're feeling, and then you meet and you come to an agreement. But if I say, hey, you left the dishes in the sink, they're not going to hear the next line. They're not going to even hear that. They're going to feel attacked, and that's that. So I hope you enjoyed these tools. The first one, reflective listening, and the second one, nonviolent communications. And I'll see you in the next section on presence. Welcome back. This is section 5, presence. So our mind has 3 file cabinets. One is the past, one is the present, one is the future. And the problem is your mind keeps shoving stuff from the past into the future. So what we need to learn how to do is be in the present moment and release our prejudices, as we did in the atonement section. And then this is a whole other set of tools, somatic tools, so that you can just be in the present moment today. Now, your mind does drag you into the past and drag you into the future. And as I say on my first DVD, depression relates to thoughts about the past and anxiety relates to thoughts about the future. The past no longer exists. It's dead and gone. Clap last Thursday. The future doesn't yet exist. So how can depression and anxiety exist? So there's no off switch for your mind, right? You can't just say, stop thinking. It doesn't work like that. And, you can't tell the mind what not to think. If I say, don't think of a purple elephant, your mind has to put it in to take it out. If I say, don't think of that terrible car accident, your mind has to put it in. If I could tell you what not to think, then, every psychotherapist would be out of business, right? So this is analogous to meditation, because what we need to do is learn how to release the thinking apparatus, which is very difficult because we're kind of all addicted to that. We're all on autopilot, and we want to get some fresh insights into the defense mechanisms that we built to survive our childhoods and make some tweaks so we could show up more vulnerably and more authentically to inspire our partners to show up in more loving ways also. So meditation and yoga were devised and designed to help us transcend our thoughts and go to the other side of this whole mishigas in our heads and reboot our hard drives. That's why I like to practice in the morning and get a fresh start for the day. To be, after Shavasana corpse pose, to be in a fetal position and be reborn, metaphorically, to start my day fresh and leave the prejudices from yesterday behind. But if I just say meditate, or sneeze, or sleep, right? It doesn't work like that, So I have to trick you into meditating because, again, you are addicted to your sense of self. You're addicted to all the craziness in your head, and I'm trying to get you to release it. So the way I like to teach this is through optical illusions. And my favorite one to explain meditation is this one. So what do you see? Well, hopefully, if you can point your awareness going that way, you see a rabbit, and then you can point your awareness going that way and you see a duck, right? Now, F. Scott Fitzgerald said, the test of first-rate intelligence is our ability to retain opposite thoughts in the mind at the same time and retain the ability to function. So maybe you think you can see both at the same time. Maybe you know soft focus, but what I'm going to argue is that you can make them flicker. So this is the problem, I think, of the prefrontal cortex. It thinks in binaries. It thinks black, white, tall, short, good, bad. And it's essentially an either-or mechanism, right? If you think about it. And the world isn't like that. The world isn't like either-or. The world is and. So that's why using these optical illusions to explain meditation is so important. What do you see here? You see the two profiles and the vase, right? What do you see here? The chess pieces and the monks. So this is my favorite one. This is so damn funny. I was in a large class once, and there was one person in the room who couldn't see the young woman. And so you see the old woman, her chin just going for the angle. You see the old woman, and then the young woman is facing that way, and that's her nose. Hopefully, I mean, you can see both. But there was one person, and the most interesting thing is that once you do see both images, you can't unsee either, which is really interesting. And then you can make some choices, like I can see the old woman, or I can focus my awareness and see the young woman. And it's really beautiful if, as happened, someone can't see, like let's say the young woman for 10, 15 minutes, and then they see it, and they're like, oh! And it's like watching popcorn pop into popcorn. It's so funny, right? So this is how I explain meditation. I can't tell you to shut off your mind. I can't tell you to not see the duck, because then you have to look at it to then, But what I can do is gently guide your attention to something else. And that's how we trick the mind into releasing the thinking apparatus. So for this one, we're just going to gently maintain our attention on our breaths. And I like to reframe this and give you a new paradigm to think of. So when Polonius is reading Hamlet's letter to the king and queen to try to adduce his madness, he reads the letter that Hamlet wrote to Ophelia, and it's signed, "While this machine is to him, I am forever yours, Lord Hamlet." While this machine is to him. So what kind of universe would you have to live in to sign your letters? While this machine is to him. Well, you'd have to believe that you were essentially a soul, going through eternity, and you were borrowing this machine that I call Ira, that machine that he calls Hamlet for these 83 years. And that's an interesting way to reframe your meditation. And the other way I like to do it is, we have this scientific paradigm, like we all know we have lungs in here, and we have a nose up here, and we have an esophagus, and we're breathing in and breathing out. We can feel this whole thing. But why don't you invert that, right? Why don't you think that the universe is breathing through you? And that you are just a drop of water in the ocean. And, the ocean's just this thing happening. So take those two reframings on, and we're just going to meditate for 2 minutes. And the first thing I like to do is to create the physical frame, and that is having the knees below or lower than the hips, and the spine straight, the chin level. We relax the forehead, and we allow gravity to gently tug the flesh down off of the cheekbones. If you like, you can take the tip of your tongue and put it at the roof of your mouth behind your front teeth. And in our society, because we drive, because we eat meat, because we drink caffeine, our bodies are perpetually in fight or flight mode. And what I notice is that the inhalations are about 4 seconds and the exhalations are about 5. So to take yourself out of fight or flight mode, it's nice to double that. And I'll help you out a little bit. So we'll exhale everything out. And then inhale, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. And if you need words to go along with what we're doing, use the Buddha's instructions. Breathing in, I know that I'm breathing in. And breathing out, I know that I'm breathing out. Breathing in, I know that I'm breathing in. And breathing out, I know that I'm breathing out. And feel free to pause this video and meditate for 5 or 10 minutes, just thinking about those long, deep, delicious inhalations and long, deep, fluid exhalations. And we'll all meet up at the end of this meditation when we gently guide our attention back into the room. And now we'll go on to a second meditation, an awareness meditation. And we're going to learn how to observe our thoughts and hopefully be able to watch the judgments that we make. Oh my God, why is it so easy for everybody else? Why is meditation so difficult for me? I have too many thoughts. Nobody else has this terrible affliction of consciousness like I do. So to do that, we're going to use these 3 visualizations. Visualizations. Say that 10 times fast. First one is the ancient one of you're sitting by a river and there's a tree off to the side and a leaf falls from the tree, and whatever thought you have in your head, I should have grilled cheese sandwiches for lunch. You put that thought onto a leaf and then you watch the leaf float down the stream or river. And what you'll notice is once the leaf exits your mind screen, right, another thought will come in your head. I wonder what I'm going to make for dinner. And you'll put that one thought onto the leaf and then you'll watch it float down the stream, and the same thing will happen again and again. So that's one visualization. And the second one is clouds. So you're sitting at the edge of a cliff and you're looking out over the ocean and there are clouds going by, and you place your thought, I have to wash my clothing today, onto a cloud, and you watch the cloud float through the sky. And then the same thing will happen. You'll notice that it exits your mind screen, and as it does, another thought will come into your head, or maybe I'll wash my clothes tomorrow. And you'll put that one on a leaf, put that one on a cloud and watch it float through your mind screen. And then my personal favorite is sitting at the bottom of a pool very calmly, and there's a Snoopy bubble over your head, and whatever thought comes into your head, I wonder if they lowered interest rates on my credit card. You put that into your bubble, and you watch the bubble float to the surface. And you'll notice as it hits the surface, the bubble will pop, and then another thought will go into your head. I wonder if I parked the car correctly. And you'll put that thought into the bubble and then watch it float to the surface. So there's 3 visualizations to help you observe your thoughts. One, placing your thoughts on a leaf. The second one, placing your thoughts on a cloud. And the third, placing it on a bubble. And let's just try these on for 2 minutes, or if you want to go longer, you can just shut this off. And please close your eyes, relax the face, create the physical frame, and then expand your inhalations and exhalations. And for the next 2 minutes, whatever thought comes into your head, please put it on a leaf, put it on a cloud, put it in a thought bubble, and watch it float through your mind screen. Gently bring our attention back into the room. Okay, so please point to the part of your body that was observing your thoughts. Most people point here. If you were in Tibet, the word mind was used, you would point here. The mind is non-local. So you have to decide on, is it your higher self? Is it your soul? What part of you is able to watch your thoughts? But the point is that you are not your thoughts, right? That quote from Suzuki Roshi, you're perfect and there's room for improvement. But if you can create some distance between your thoughts, then instead of letting them drag you around like you're trying to tame a wild horse, then you can tame that horse, and you can think better thoughts, which is what William James suggested as the greatest weapon against stress is our ability to choose one thought over another. The glass is either half empty or half full, but you have to decide that. So attachment, atonement, attunement, presence. I'll meet you up in the next section for congruence. Welcome back. Authenticity, section 6, congruence. All right. So, how do I explain congruence? So, you can think of yourself as comprised of your thoughts, and we're able to observe those thoughts, and then your actions, which you make decisions on, you choose. And, you want to realize what an incredible privilege it is to not be running from lions and tigers, to not work in a coal mine 17 hours a day. Most people who are watching this have the ability to choose for one of the first times in humanity, like who they want to be and what type of life they want to lead. And then they can decide on the tools they will employ to lead those lives. So for me, the way I explain congruence is through the beautiful quote by Andre Gide, who said, "It is better to be hated for what you are than to be loved for what you are not. It is better to be hated for what you are than to be loved for what you are not." And there's a certain irony here, because we create a false self to survive our childhoods, right? And then we're the hip and cool person, and we seduce people into liking us because we're hip and cool. But actually, we want to be a whole person, not just a hip and cool person. And, maybe we live in a society that only likes fair weather friends. And, you're sad one day, and all of a sudden you notice people not returning your phone call. They don't want to be brought down. But you want to be accepted as a whole human being, right? So congruence, again, is the privilege of knowing that you have reached this part of human evolution where you have the freedom to decide who you want to be, and then use these tools like forgiveness and attunement and meditation, and create a great life, and own who you are and what you're doing on this journey called life. You are non-existent for billions of years. You're here for a very brief period of time, and then you're going to be non-existent for billions of years again. So the only panacea I see for wanting to live a loving, fulfilled life is show up authentically. So that's why I've created this course on attachment, atonement, attunement, presence, and congruence. And we have to be the change that we want to see in the world, right? Alice Walker famously wrote, "We are the ones we have been waiting for." It stops with me. I will break this chain of unskillful solutions. Maybe we grew up in a society where we learned, imprecise tools. Our way of being in the world brings unsatisfactoriness along with it, because of all the competitiveness. Instead of thinking of life as a zero-sum game, maybe we should reframe it as, I can't be great unless you're great. I want you to be great. As opposed to the schadenfreude we feel, or there's a famous quote by Gore Vidal. He said, in America, it's not enough to succeed. All my friends must fail, right? That was when we thought of life as a zero-sum game. We live in a world of abundance, and there's enough pie for everyone. And if that's not some incentive to want you to try on some new tools, maybe this will be an incentive. Somebody once told me the definition of hell. On your last day on earth, the person you became will meet the person you could have become. You only live once, if that. Right? In this incarnation, you are who you are. So until you own every moment of your life, and then have a wide array of tools to constantly show up as your highest self and be authentic and attract authentic, loving relationships, you're going to be the cause of your own suffering. And there's a certain irony here, because our minds were created to keep us safe, and it does that by creating these grievance stories. But what I'm asking you to do is try on some new tools so that you can show up in the present moment and as authentically as possible. So that was the section on authenticity. And I'm going to do a little bonus section to end this part on happiness. I'll see you along in the next video. Welcome back to this bonus section, authentic happiness. It's really fascinating that we live in a culture that has the inalienable right to pursue happiness. And it turns out that that's a surefire way to misery. Pursuing happiness is only going to cause you misery, because happiness is a moving target. It's like the horizon. The closer you get towards it, the more it'll move away. And the reason is because your mind functions like a hedonic treadmill, meaning that if you listen to all the scientific studies, particularly the one called Accident Victims and Lottery Winners, scientists have found that whatever you think will make you happy will for 6 to 18 months. And then at the end, whatever desire was stated will be replaced by another desire. So if you think, I'll be happy when I have a Lamborghini, when I'm married, when I'm not married, whatever it is, yeah, you will. And you'll also be unsatisfied again fairly quickly. Your mind replaces desires with more desires. And again, that's the beautiful understanding of Buddhism, that the root of all suffering is desire, because your mind functions like a hedonic treadmill. Now, a better way to think of happiness is that happiness cannot be pursued. You do not find happiness. Happiness finds you. It is not an end in itself, but a byproduct of other activities, often arriving when least expected. So again, pursuing happiness is a surefire way to misery. What you need to do is create a life that keeps you at the high end of your happiness spectrum. We all have a happiness spectrum, and that's what that study found. Accident victims and lottery winners. And if you are in a terrible car accident, or if you win the lottery, whatever level of happiness you're at, you'll be at in 18 months. So you think, oh my God, if I won $50 million, I'd be happy forever. And if you have read any of the reports on lottery winners, you know that the suicide rate is much higher. There's all sorts of terrible things happen. I mean, it's like the kiss of death. You might as well win the Sundance Film Festival. Yeah, it's very prestigious, but it's it's not great in the long run. Happiness is a byproduct. You need to have tools that keep you at the high end of your happiness range or spectrum. So yoga, meditation, loving relationships, eating healthily, sleep, things like that keep you at the high end. Drinking a bottle of gin for breakfast and mouthing off to a police officer will not, right? This is a really funny quote by Nick Hornby. He says, it's not true that money can't buy happiness. It can. That's the good news. Well, the bad news is that it's someone else's happiness. Right? There's all these studies done. Hoarding makes people unhappy. Giving away makes people happy, right? So it's this insane culture we live in. I can't wait till they have negative interest rates, and it costs you money to go to a bank, to keep your money in the bank, and you have to give it away. Like, we're going to see this whole new world happen. There's a formula for happiness that I heard. Happiness is what you have divided by what you want. And so in the East, they learned to decrease the denominator. And in the West, we're constantly trying to increase the numerator. Like, we always want more stuff. But if you want to be happy, then learn how to be happy with what you do have. I mean, it's such an incredible privilege to enjoy the freedoms and the benefits of living in Western culture and having this elongated lifespan and having the plethora of foods that we can enjoy. So I was sitting with Rick Hansen once, and he said, you can't pull all the weeds in the garden, but you can plant flowers. So your mind is like a hard drive. It's finite, and you can't go in there and pull the weeds, but you can plant little flowers of gratitude, right? So every flower you plant is, I'm grateful for just basic things, that I'm here, I'm alive, right? Instead of trying to go in there and pick out I'd be happy now if I had this thing or that thing, right? Albert Ellis famously said, stop shooting on yourself. So what we need to do is learn how to replace the resentments that our mind creates with little flowers of gratitude. And, this is what cognitive behavior is all about, writing gratitude lists in the morning. Here's an example, super simple. I woke up, I have clothes, I have running water, I have food, life is good. Okay, so here are 10 things that I think will keep you at the high end of your happiness spectrum. Make a gratitude list, visit somebody and thank them, smiling, get enough sleep, exercise, spend time in nature, perform random acts of kindness, avoid comparisons, know that experiences make people happier than possessions. On your deathbed, you will remember walking through the streets of Paris. You won't remember the handbag that you were carrying. Know your vocation. Voco in Latin is calling, what you're doing on planet Earth, and love what you do. And then meditate. So here's some bonus points. Forgive everyone, including yourself. Choose compassion over competition. I can't be great unless you're great, right? Choose love over ego gratification. Ego gratification is ephemeral. I always use the analogy of, I think it's Bugs Bunny or Wile E. Coyote or something like that. I remember this cartoon where the guy has like a devil on this one shoulder and an angel on one shoulder, and they're both talking to him. And so the devil for me is your ego, because your ego wants instant gratification. Instant gratification takes too long for your ego. Just more, different, better, more different, better, right? And your angel wants love, because that's the only long-term viable solution, because you want it to say on your tombstone, beloved. You don't want it to say satisfied his ego repeatedly, right? So choose authenticity, choose authentic communications. All right, so here's an example of making a gratitude visit and thanking someone. What does this photo mean to you? It means nothing to you. But on January 6, 1985, this gentleman was called to Greenwich Hospital at 5 a.m. to amputate the leg of a young 18-year-old boy. And Dr. Rhoda arrived and saw a young boy's mangled leg and said, I'm going to try something new. And he drilled a hole through my tibia and pulled my knee down from my thigh and put me in traction. And then a week later, opened my leg up like an avocado and replaced all the marrow in the femur with a Zickel nail apparatus, which he had never done before. And I lived in Paris in 1991, and I lived on the 6e étage, which is a 7th floor walk up. And I was writing, so I had to go up and down the stairs like 20 times a day to get my rejection letters. And so I got to the top of the stairs one day, and I just thought, like, wow, this would really suck with one leg. And I wrote a letter to Dr. Rhoda, and I said, Dr. Rhoda, I just walked up 7 flights of stairs. And I went to the Jardin de Luxembourg last week, and I rode my bike last week, and thank you for taking the road less traveled. And January 6th, every year for the past 36 years now, at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock at the end of the day, I sit down, and Dr. Rhoda actually passed away last summer. But I still sat down in January, and I wrote a thank you letter to him. This photo is from probably 9 years ago. I went back to Connecticut for my high school reunion, and I called him up, and I said, can I take you to breakfast? And I tell people, I say, if you ever want to meet your maker, meet the man who didn't amputate your leg. And I tell that story because all of you have a photo like this. All of you have Dr. Thomas Rhoda in your life, somebody who gave birth to you, someone who sent you to college, someone who saved your life. And you should just spend the next 5 minutes thinking or writing things that you're grateful for. So this is super easy. If I have to write a gratitude list, the first thing is I have 2 legs. Most of you probably have 2 legs too. So if you are flummoxed, just write down, I have 2 legs. I have human consciousness. It's a blessing and a curse, but I'm going to be grateful for it. have a few loving friends, I have a roof over my head, and I have enough money to eat today. So take the next couple of minutes. You can shut the video off and just write down or meditate on maybe some things you've overlooked recently. And we'll all meet back up in the next part of this presentation, which is A Path to Awakening. Thank you.